Well, I am going to get us started now. There may be some other folks joining as we go, but thank you so much for attending tonight's session about planned giving. It's our first in a series of two. My name is Eva Lesniak, and I'm a member of Project Resource. Can the other members just quickly maybe wave so that everyone can see who you are? Mother Megan? There we go. Natalie? Evelyn? Father Chuck? Christy? Great. And Father Bob. Did I miss anyone from the Project Resource team? Shirley, yes. Thank you. Okay, great. So we're really glad that you're able to join, and we're going to be starting with an opening prayer that will be led by Father Chuck.
As always, we want to open everything in prayer. So the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Generous and loving God, we come to you in thanksgiving, knowing that all we are and all that we have is a gift from you. We offer you thanks and praise for the beauty of the earth, our work, our family, our loved ones, and the gifts we have been given. In faith and love, help us to do your will. We are listening. We pray that we will make stewardship a way of life. Help us plan to serve our church, our community, and the world with your gifts. May we serve you and pray with a joyful spirit and mind and heart. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Chuck. So we're very pleased that you're all here tonight. We've structured this evening's program in three parts. So we're going to start with an instructive portion that will be led by Mother Megan, really to give you some foundational information. That will be repeated again next week. It's about 20 minutes long, so that members or attendees that can only attend one or the other session will benefit from that information. Then we're going to be highlighting some experiences in the areas of planned giving from several churches. So tonight we have two that will be highlighted. Next week we have three different ones, and that will probably take us around 15 or 20 minutes. And then we'll move into a panel discussion where we have some questions that we'll be posing to a panel. And then after those, members of the panel can respond to that question. If any of you as attendees have some experiences in your own planned giving journey, we welcome you to share them as well. So Evelyn Chen is going to be, she's driving the slides for us tonight, but she'll also be our timekeeper. So that we can cover everything we want to cover tonight, if we start lagging behind a little about from the schedule, she's going to come up with some creative ways to signal to us that we might want to wrap up that topic and move to the next section. So thanks in advance, Evelyn, for doing that. So I'd like to turn the floor over now to Mother Megan Thomas. She's an attorney as well as an ordained priest. And for the instructional portion, she'll be leading the discussion. Mother Megan.
Sure. Thanks, Eva. So, Project Resource is Stewardship Commission of the Diocese of New Jersey. And we are here to help you amp up your stewardship program through annual giving, major gifts, and planned giving. And planned giving, of course, is the subject for this evening's conversation. Next slide. You know, we plan for all sorts of things. We plan to have families. We plan to raise children. We plan to send them off to college. We plan for our own retirements. So planning is something that all of us are accustomed to. And planning ahead is a part of stewardship. It's a part of how we steward our resources and plan for our families, but plan also for that treasure in heaven. How do we use our treasure to propel forward God's mission? So some people think that, you know, planned giving is just one of these technical things and that it's just too difficult to deal with. And in any event, what does Scripture have to say? What place does it have in the church? Well, actually, Jesus had a fair amount to say about financial matters and even estates. Next slide, please. Here's this famous quote from the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus tells his listeners, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and decay destroys and thieves break in and steal, but store up treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor decay destroy, nor thieves break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there also your heart will be. And of course, you see, I have this illustration of a barn and a silo, and actually they relate more to a parable that you probably know. And it's a very interesting parable because here Jesus speaks explicitly about an inheritance. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge between you?" And then he said to them all, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And then he told this story. The farm of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Remember, wealth was in agricultural goods in Jesus' time. And he said to himself, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." And Jesus went on to say, "Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Next slide, please. So Jesus had something to say about inheritance, but the church has something to say about planned giving. Could you go to the next slide, please? There's an interesting rubric. A rubric is an instruction in the Book of Common Prayer, which we almost never run into unless you know where to look for it, because it's hiding in the liturgy for Thanksgiving for a child. And here, the Episcopal Church says the minister of the congregation is directed to instruct the people from time to time about the duty of Christian parents to make prudent provision for the well-being of their families and of all persons, to make wills while they are in health, arranging for the disposal of their temporal goods, not neglecting, if they are able, to leave the quest for religious and charitable uses. Now, you know very well that in the Episcopal Church, it's not our culture to talk a great deal about money. We are uncomfortable doing that. It's just not polite. And so the church has hidden away this really important instruction in a part of the prayer book that we almost never read. But I'm bringing it to your attention tonight because this is something you should have in mind. Next slide, please. So what then is a planned gift? So we plan with our resources, right? We plan with the assets we have stewarded over a lifetime, savings that you have put aside, insurance you may have purchased, retirement assets, a home, and all the other sorts of things that we acquire during our lifetimes. What we do with planned giving for the purposes of the church and the kingdom of heaven is to find a way to provide a treasure that never fails. And we commit our resources to sustaining the mission that God has entrusted to us. And we plan at the same time for the needs of our families. You can do both. So the typical sort of planned gift, the ones that I think of as planned gifts in any event, are gifts that mature upon the donor's death. And of course, planned giving requires us to think about our mortality. not to be shy about talking about death, just as we ought not to be shy about talking about money. Next slide, please. So we'll very quickly touch on some types of planned gifts. So there are kinds of gifts that benefit a donor or others during a donor's lifetime. And we will really not get into that in any great detail, but there's plenty of information available through our partners at ECF, ECF Episcopal Church Foundation, and our other partners who have helped us through this stewardship process, and plenty of resources available on the Project Resource website. Easy Lifetime Gifts, charitable gift annuity. It's an annuity, it's a contract with the Episcopal Church to pay a stream of income. More complex are trusts that you establish with the help of an attorney that pay income to you for life, and what remains is given to the church. But the kinds of gifts that you can make perhaps during your lifetime, aside from bequests, which are part of your estate plan, might be gifts of appreciated securities, or making a distribution from an IRA directly to a charity. That's called a rollover distribution. Sometimes a gift of art or other kinds of tangible property might be helpful. And then you could always give real estate, but those are complex gifts that require assistance from financial advisors and attorneys. Next slide, please. But the good thing about a planned gift, all planned gifts, is that they are made in confidence and in hope. They elevate the church and its mission to the level of family. And most of the ones that we deal with take effect at death. And in many respects, and I think this is addressed mostly to clergy who are involved in this ministry, cultivating planned gifts is a ministry of pastoral care, because we're talking about our mortality. We're talking about our resources. Next slide. Now, I just want to touch on the basics. As Eva said when she introduced me, I am an attorney. I have practiced for about 30 years in the field of estate planning and estate administration. So I'm just going to run through the basics very quickly. Lots of people will say, well, I don't have an estate. Well, yes, you do. If you have a car, if you have a bank account in your own name, if you are likely to receive an income tax refund or refund of an unused premium, insurance premium paid after your death, you will have an estate. And some member of your family or a person, if you've appointed an executor, will have to handle that for you and make the appropriate distributions. So do you need an estate plan? My answer to everybody is yes. Yes, you do. Because if you do not do your own planning, no matter how modest you think your assets are, the state of New Jersey will have an estate plan for you. And that will be a distribution to your next of kin, even if your next of kin is a first cousin or a second cousin or some great niece or nephew, someone that we would call a laughing heir, laughing all the way to the bank, that is, because you didn't have your own will and you didn't make provisions for the distribution of your assets the way you wanted them to go. Next slide, please. So there are some essential documents, and the first is a last will and testament. This is a written document. It can even be handwritten if it's done carefully and properly signed. Sometimes people benefit from a revocable trust, sometimes called a living trust. I've heard them called a loving trust. And in New Jersey, that's really not essential, but they are appropriate for some people. You can't have just a trust. You have to have the will to go with it too. Other documents that are very important as part of planning for your final affairs, planning for your lifetime affairs, is to have a durable power of attorney for financial matters. and a healthcare directive, healthcare power of attorney. Next slide. Now, I just thought I would drop this in here because so often you will hear planned giving promoted as a means of saving taxes. For nearly every donor that you are likely to encounter in church, tax savings are no longer a real impetus to make a planned gift. That's because the current federal estate tax exemption is almost $13 million per person and close to $24 million per married couple. And most of the people in our congregations do not have estates of that size. Now, the federal estate tax has all kinds of provisions in it for charitable deductions, marital deductions, the use of various exemptions, and you would need to have an accountant or an attorney assist you with that if you were to file a federal estate tax return on death. But I'm just dropping this in here so we know that taxes are not going to be a driver when you talk to people about estate planning for most everyone you talk to. Not absolutely everyone, but most people. Fortunately, New Jersey no longer has an estate tax. Next. However, New Jersey does have a transfer inheritance tax, which is a tax imposed on the value of property transferred at death or in contemplation of death, in other words, close to the time of death, to certain classes of beneficiaries. So, for example, if you leave a bequest to a niece or a nephew, a cousin, a brother or sister, your godchild, that transfer is very likely going to be subject to New Jersey's transfer inheritance tax, and you should have a will that plans for how that tax will be paid. Fortunately, your spouse, your lineal ancestors, which would be your parents and grandparents, and your lineal descendants, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, are exempt, as are charity. The estate tax, the inheritance tax is next slide. Go back, keep going. There you go. Stay there. Is fairly high. And if you haven't got a will that makes provision for the payment of the inheritance tax, it will be taken out of the property passing to your beneficiary, and it will slow down the administration of your estate. Another reason to have a will. Next slide. So we say that planning ahead is a part of stewardship. And so we want to know, is God's will reflected in your will? And we have a little card at my former parish. There's a little handout for Stewardship Sunday. And it says on it, the spirit was willing, but where was the will? So it's important as we encourage people to consider making our congregations a part of their estate plan and elevating the church and its mission to the level of family, that there be documents, appropriate documents in place to make that happen. Bequests can be made outright. I leave $10,000 to the Rector Wardens and Vestry of St. Luke's Episcopal Church, Ewing, New Jersey. That's a simple outright bequest. Or you can have a bequest that happens at the end of a trust. For example, I leave my estate in trust for the benefit of my spouse, and on the death of my spouse, my trustee shall give this percentage of the remaining trust fund to my church, the balance to my children. There are a variety of ways to do this. You can also make bequests out of your retirement assets, for example, an IRA. You could have the distribution instructions, which you can complete without an attorney. Leave 5% of my IRA to my congregation. The balance will be divided among your children. You can do something similar with an insurance policy. Again, all you need for that is the help of perhaps your financial advisor and the IRA custodian or your insurance agent. But whatever way you plan to make a contribution for the mission and ministry of the church, you have to get it down in writing. Next slide. Here is one of my most favorite cartoons. And it's from a pretty well-known cartoonist. His cartoon is called Agnus Dei. It's always sheep talking to each other. I don't know if you can read it, but the first sheep says, "I know that my life doesn't consist in the abundance of my possessions." The other sheep answers, "That's good." But the first sheep answers, "But they sure make it more enjoyable." Of course they do. Of course they do. But what we have, everything we have, comes from God. And, you know, God's will for us includes not only caring for our loved ones, our families, by providing instructions through a will or other means so that they're not left stranded upon our death to figure out what to do, but also to make a provision for your church, for the work of the church in the community and in the wider world, but always remembering that everything we have is from God and ultimately belongs to God. That's my presentation on the nuts and bolts of planned giving. It's very, very brief. There's plenty of information to give you more detail, and I'm happy to answer questions anytime. And you can always get in touch with the project resource team. Eva, I think the next slide will allow us to transition.
Yes, thank you.
So one of the things we like to talk about is whether or not to have a legacy society. You can certainly have a planned giving program at your congregation without a formal legacy society, but there is benefit to a legacy society because it gets people engaged. The basic thing to do, however, is to remember that you need to build trust. It's a steward to steward transfer of resources. You need to build a team. One person is not going to be able to run a planned giving program, just as one person cannot run the annual pledge program and do it effectively. In addition, the leaders of the parish should be encouraged to be among the first to make a commitment. I always tell people, leaders lead. And I always tell people, begin with bequests. It's the simplest thing to do. It's easily understood. And all of the major institutions that raise charitable dollars, even Princeton University, their development officers will tell you, we begin with bequests because that's where the largest gifts come from. And in fact, recently I read of an article where a woman for years had been giving $5 to $7 to her college, William Patterson in New Jersey, and she left a very large trust gift to the university of over $1 million. And they didn't know it was coming, but she had done this commitment for year after year, small gifts during her lifetime. Begin with bequests. The people out there who are helping keep the annual campaign going every year, they are also the ones who can fund that annual gift with a bequest. Okay, time
Thank
to
you
move
so
on.
much. Thank you
Sure.
so much, Mother Megan. So we're now going to move on into our second portion of tonight's agenda, and that is highlighting two different churches and what they're part of their planned giving journey. And so I did see Father William join us, and he and Shirley Thompson are from St. Augustine in Asbury Park. And so Shirley is going to be beginning by talking to us about a program that they just held recently. Shirley?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you, Mother Megan, for that treasure trove of information. So much to continue to learn. Again, my name is Shirley Thompson, a member of St. Augustine's Church and chair of our wonderful, wonderful stewardship ministry. Um, our congregation at St. Augustine's is many of our members are at retirement age and older, but it sounds like from Mother Megan, uh, at least from what I'm listening, we really need to start long before that in terms of planning our journey towards plan giving to our church. So we will keep that in mind, Mother Megan, as we reach out to some of our younger members of our congregation. But at St. Augustine's, we have many families, just as in your church, most likely, where there are several generations of our members attending. They've seen the church grow and change over time, but we want to continue that journey. And the way that we're going to do that, hopefully, is through building and educating, building our plan giving program. So again, like your congregation, many of our members have contributed over time to our many projects that we've had, including capital giving, our capital campaign. Some of our members have even left those gifts at death to our church. But what we want to do as good stewards is continue that spiritual journey of intentional planned giving to our church and to our church family. However, we have to meet our members and our church family where they are right now, right? We have to do that. What does that mean? So for St. Augustine's, during our recent stewardship campaign, we wanted to really reach our congregation. It was one of those times where after COVID, we had the opportunity to be face to face together, but we wanted to talk to them. We wanted to bring them in and deal with those issues that are closest to them as we wanted to ensure that we were continuing to talk about our stewardship campaign and long-term giving to our church. You see our outline there of our program. This was a program, again, after consulting with our church family. What is it that they needed? What did they want to know? How can we help them on their journey? So as you can see, there were several topics there that we presented. And what we wanted to do again is begin to plant that seed, that long-term seed of planned giving. We had a wonderful panel of presenters, several of them our own church family members who are experts in their field. And again, bringing that information forward to our congregation. So again, we wanted to touch on what could we do now? What can we do now to help our members? What are some options that we could give to them regarding planned giving, the various topics that are listed there, final wishes? How can we help them to be better at those things? And again, that other question that we tend not to deal with very well, what if something happens to me? What if an illness comes and I'm no longer able to provide for myself or to have the opportunity to plan for my final wishes? So again, we organized this wonderful presentation, including planned giving, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But this is the way that we began and are beginning our journey towards planned giving. So of course, our little catchy title, putting your house in order. So what does that really mean? What does that mean to our church family? What does that mean to them individually? And how can we help? So we began by dipping our toe in the water, just a little bit, with God's grace. So we talked about, and you can see there, we talked about, do you have a will? Where is it? Have you planned for that? Does your family know about your will? These are real basic questions, but we had to address, again, where our members are and what were their needs. This was an opportunity for us to really begin to point them in the right direction. That particular day, we did not have an attorney, so we were not able to delve into that opportunity certainly as much as we wanted to, but we had information for them where they could seek the ability to have a will prepared. Of course, as Mother Megan said, you could prepare your own, but you need to have that the advice would be to have an attorney and witnesses and so forth to assist you with preparing that attorney. Advance directives, do you have one? Again, Mother Megan talked about that. The importance of having those documents readily available, and does a family member or someone significant to you know where those documents are? Include your church, include your pastor, and knowing, again, our opinion is letting your pastor and your priest know about that document and where it may be located. Again, if you're going to have a discussion like this or a workshop like this, we hope that you can have someone with legal expertise available in that group discussion. We wanted to meet, again, our members where they are, Medicare and the many, many benefits that are out there for older folks, including myself. We really need to know what's there and what is this alphabet soup of plan A, B, C, and D, right? All those different alphabet soup items. We had a very lively discussion with an expert sharing with us about Medicare benefits. Why is this important? Because these are gifts that we have. These are opportunities that we have to make our lives better now, right? If we know what some of those benefits are. And again, meeting our members, I'll keep saying this, where they are now. So our members really enjoyed that discussion. You can do this too. You can have a Medicare consultant come in. There are many brochures and documents out there with that type of and that level of detail, so that your members can begin to understand and really reap some of the better benefits of what we have and what we have contributed to over our lifetime. So again, that was a real important workshop for my church family. One of the other highlights that we talked about, and again, this is what God wants us to do, to take better care of ourselves, to be safe in our own homes. So we had another one of our church family members share with us about home safety and security. What an important workshop topic for older members in their homes, many of them by themselves, or many of them with an older partner. So we touched upon how to make your home safer, going out at night, some of the techniques that one could use to stay safe. This was a very good topic for us, even at your church, when you're having meetings at night. What are the surroundings at your church at night when some of your church members are coming? What's going on in your community? How can you contact your police department and other members of your community to continue to make not only your church area and your church environment safe, but to ensure that church family members who are coming out and attending meetings at church safe? I will tell you that one of the churches in our community in Asbury Park had a not so nice visitor come in and really scared the congregation. This is the time we live in. These are things that we need to be aware of in our church, and to continue to make that environment where we used to feel very safe in the inside of our church safe, and continue to still be open to members in our community. So again, another very important topic to us on this journey that we're on. Finally, and well, not quite finally, but we talked about a very important topic, which again, we don't talk about very much, and that is death and dying. We really do not talk about that enough. And again, we're starting to do that. What are our wishes? What are the things that we want for our family to know about our final wishes? Father William spent quite a bit of time talking about that, and to begin to put us in a path, in a direction of how we can begin to talk about that subject matter with, of course, our family. It's a great opportunity then for us to tell our family what our wishes are about our church and giving back to our church. Father William went further to talk about that final ceremony, and we call it our going home service. It's the music that you want. It's the type of service that you would like. Our family members need to know that. And we hope that you have documented that, and there are ways to do that, of course, that you begin to have that discussion and document and have that your wishes documented. So that's how we went forward with our planned giving. Finally, we had a member of our project resource team begin to discuss planned giving with us. Just as Mother Megan she had a wonderful presentation. We started that conversation with our church family. We have a long ways to go. Certainly, we're going to have another conversation about planned giving. It was kind of a long day, that particular day, but we want to continue down that journey of planting the seed to bless God and continue to bless God as He's blessed us, and to bless our church. And the way you do that is you start where your members are. You bring in, you address the needs that they have, but you educate them along the way regarding where you want to go, regarding the next chapter for your church. And for us, it's that planned giving ability for us to look long range, to continue the love that God has for us and for our church. So, Father William, I'm not sure if you're there, you want to add anything to what I've presented.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shirley Thompson, and thank you, dear fellow believers. I think having Shirley Thompson as the head of the stewardship, I just feel very energized. She never feared to approach people. She never feared to ask them whether they like it or not. And every time I ask her, what are the numbers? She's never shown me a negative face. You know how the face look like when someone says, you know what, I'm done. I can't do anymore. I have asked people to pledge. They look like, no, she always comes and say, we're doing good. Everything is fine. You will see that joy, and I feel so excited. And then she asks people to say some impossibilities. Come and share your story. And I see these people come. And where did you go? Are you still there?
Yes.
I don't see any picture. Okay. I thought that you muted me and tuned me off.
Oh, no.
But I have seen some people come. Some people, those we feel that are reserved. There are some people who just come to worship. After church service, they're gone. If there is tea, coffee, they take a cup of coffee and go. But Shirley Thompson has made these people speak, and their testimony has left every one of us tear. Because what they speak is something we sometimes never know that we do. When someone says that, I'll give a testimony of someone for many, many years. She's been in the church maybe longer than anybody else, but she's never pledged. She gives. Every Sunday she'll bring an envelope, but she's never made a pledge. So this time, when we were crunching the number, we stood out there and we talked about pledging, just as Mother Megan said. We did not force them. We says, well, it is your will. You may or you may not. And that was it. And the guy then, we wanted someone also, we wanted 3 members to run for vestry. We had 0 before the annual meeting. And this guy from nowhere said, I nominate myself and I want to pledge. You know, I didn't care whether would get 3 others, but this guy, I looked at him, he was more $1,000 million, you know. And when he said, I nominate myself to serve on the vestry, that was so powerful. So we reached a point during the retreat, we asked, why did you feel called? He said, Father William, when you stood up there and you said what it means to be a vestry member, when you stood out there and you talked about what it means to become a church, to be a church, I just felt challenged in my heart. And I felt a call and I said yes. So Shirley Thompson have said it all. You remember the doxology that we always say every Sunday, that all things come of thee, O Lord, and to thee we give. There is a way it is written if you go back and look at the book of 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 14. In some translation, it says that who am I and who are we, are my people, that we should be able to offer so willingly. Then he says, since everything comes from you, we have given you that which comes from you. Giving, sometimes we feel attached to these things we call money, assets, but they don't belong to us. But if we can actually convince people that these material things don't belong to us, giving will be so easy. We don't need to force them. But if we can only explain that we are, I would say, stewards of these things while we're still here, but they all come from God, then there is no reason for one not to give. And so when we talk about putting your house in order, I have run into some roadblocks, especially during the funeral. Someone is Episcopalian, but the children became Baptist, and some of the children don't even attend church. So when I'm asking them about the liturgy that they want, I say, what is the liturgy? I was explaining about the reception of the body and said, I don't like that reception. I said, oh, the reception is when the funeral home brings the body to the church. So what we do? I said, well, there is a service that we do before we take the body where it's supposed to be for viewing. I don't like it. I said, okay, what do you want? So when there are some people who fear to plan about their death, and there's some people who don't want even to talk about it, but the reason is because probably they're not advised. They're not told about. They are not even, they do not know. They fear to face the future. So our putting your house in order has risen some questions, not questions of diverting from the theme, but the questions of how do I do it? And that's where teaching, that's where you guys become very important for us. How do I do it? Where do I go? What is needed there? And so during our vestry retreat, we want our vestry members to make sure that they have the answers. If they come to any of us, at least one can explain. So giving is something is imperative. You know, giving is something that you and I needs to take as a custom, if possible. Not just giving movies or giving what, but whom am I giving? Why do I do so? And who should see it? On how, what am I trying to glorify? Am I trying to build my name, or am I trying to build God's kingdom? So we need more teaching and how to approach it and how to bring it to the people in their own way. especially when they are in a good mood. You know,
Yeah.
create a good mood, give them heavy coffee, and let them stay awake, and then bring it slowly, soothing it into their mind until you begin engaging in the questions and answers.
Thank you, Father.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much, Father William. And thank
You're
you, Shirley. I think that you're putting your house in order. It's a really wonderful way to begin the dialogue and then continue it along the way, even if it becomes an annual event. I think it's and it also can speak to young families that are just having children as a
Yes.
way to begin that process. So thank you. The next highlight will actually be, I'll be presenting it. I am a member of Church of the Holy Spirit in Lebanon. And I wanted to just share with you a little bit about our journey. We're in the very early stages, but I wanted to kind of show you where it started. The discussion started around planned giving. This was in 2015, there was a committee that drafted an endowment fund policy and guidelines document at our church. And the idea around an endowment is to ensure the future mission and ministry of the church beyond what is possible through annual giving and annual operating funds. So a document was drafted. It established the general description of the endowment, how we were going to manage it, who would be on the committee. It outlined guidelines, etc. It talked about what types of gifts we would accept. And I put the URL to our website where that document is posted here on the slide, and we'll distribute the slides to attendees at the workshops after, if you would like to look that up. And then in early February of 2016, our vestry ratified that policy and guidelines and posted it on our website. And then 6 years went by and nothing happened because we didn't lead it forward. So we had an endowment fund created. We understood how we would operate it. And only 2 of those 6 years were the pandemic. So I think we just sort of lost steam, and it sort of just sat there. So last year, we revived our endowment committee. We took an inventory of what bequests and gifts had come in that would be earmarked as planned gifts that would essentially seed the endowment fund. We made sure we were aware of any specific designations. In one of the bequests, the person wanted a sacristy put together to house all of our vestments and such. So that was not part of the endowment fund that we would be building. We actually built that sacristy, and that continues to be used now. And then we started, the committee started looking at how are we going to invest the monies that are in our endowment fund. So that's really what we spent last year doing. And then in December, we made our recommendation to the vestry that the funds, and there were about 10 different bequests ranging in size from very small, a few $100s, up to several $1,000s. But it added up to about $25,500. We made the recommendation to our vestry that we put those funds into the Diocesan Investment Trust, or the DIT, with the Diocese of New Jersey. And we chose to reinvest any dividends that would grow from that fund back into the fund so that the endowment would continue to grow. So that's how far we've gotten up to this point. We have plans this year to start advertising and promoting the endowment itself and the endowment fund and the opportunity to participate in that. We love the idea that St. Augustine had of putting our house in order. So we're looking to do some sort of day-long event later on this year. We want to launch a legacy society, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then we want to host our first annual celebration of the Legacy Society. So that's been our journey thus far. And thank you for moving the slide. So just a little bit about the Diocesan Investment Trust. I put the URL to the diocese website where it's described. There are a lot of great documents there. we made the decision, our vestry approved, that we would use that vehicle to invest our $25,500 for a number of reasons that I've tried to capture here. It's very aligned with our own policies. It has a very good historic rate of return. It's very focused on social and religiously responsible investment, which we felt was very important. And the administration costs are reasonable. And finally, we didn't feel we had the expertise to find an investment group and manage them. But there's a 9-member board of trustees for the DIT at the diocese. Half of it is appointed, half of it is elected, and they meet quarterly. So we really felt that that was a really great and appropriate vehicle for us to invest the monies that were bequeathed to our church. Next slide, please. Why create a legacy society? That's something we want to be doing this year. It's really a way to help encourage people to plan for their end of life and to remember their church. It's a way to honor and acknowledge commitment that people make in your church to do so. And it also helps to grow the program by giving opportunities to recognize and celebrate. So it's something we want to talk more about as a project resource group, but I just wanted to touch base briefly here about Legacy Society and endowment. Okay, so the next part of our program is our panel discussion. And so we have a number of attendees. Lisa Gay is from Trinity Morristown. Lisa, if you're there you are. Hello. And then we also have Bill and Stephanie Bodine from St. Stephen's in Whiting. They're here. Hello, thank you. And then Shirley and Father William from St. Augustine, Father Chuck from St. John Salem, and then myself from Holy Spirit. So we have a number of questions, and we'll start by asking each question and asking the panelists to respond. And then please, if any attendees have experience in these areas and could contribute to the answers to these questions, we'll open the floor before we move to the next question. So the first question was, what was your first step, or what finally got you going when it comes to planned giving and your journey there? Lisa or Bill and Stephanie, would you like to share?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Eva, and thank you, Father, and to be online with all of you. I am stewardship chairman at St. Stephen's in Whiting. I'd like to introduce, of course, my wife, who's a senior warden in our parish, and she's also a member of our team. Basically, the first steps that we had was after our stewardship season ended in November. I got together with our team and I threw out an idea. Basically, the idea was something I thought about and discussed with our rector, Father Paul, and I asked him if we could have some kind of a service for the benefit of the people of our community and the people of our parish family. And that's how we got it going. The idea was a legacy summit, and we're going to have that next month on Saturday, April the 29th, from 10 until 2. And that was basically the first step. That was how we got started. So want to get the ball rolling that way, and it just basically flowed from there. I can go further, as we go along.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Lisa?
Yeah, so for Trinity, our first step was an educational effort on planned giving options. There's a lot of options, and Mother Megan talked about a lot of them. It's more than just bequests, and a lot of people think that associate planned giving is really just bequests, and it's much more than that. So we put together some material on immediate gift options, bequests, and life income gifts. And I think we've covered all three of those. And we shared that with the congregation, both through the church website. So some pretty detailed information on the church website, as well as some presentations. So we did presentations both in person and on Zoom. And we focused a bit on some tax advantaged options for immediate gifts, like appreciated securities, donor advised funds, and qualified charitable distributions for those 70 and a half or older, which many of our parishioners could probably take advantage of, but don't know about. And I think with some of the tax law changes, people are really not aware of some of these abilities to bucket things into the donor advised fund to exceed the new standard deduction that doubled a few years ago. So we really focus on an educational effort, and that's how we got started.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Shirley or Father William or Father Chuck, anything to share as far as your, I know that you're putting your house in order is definitely a first step.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask the two who have just spoken, in your approach and in your teaching, how was the reception? And if so, what was age-wise, if you could say, do you have some young ones in their 30s, maybe in their 40s, or do all the yes people who accepted to become legacy members of the Legacy Society, which level are they? Are they in their 60s or they are below in their young teenager, young adults?
Well, if you were asking for me, we were not quite talking about Legacy Society so much about educational effort. And I would say most of the attendees who came for the seminars were older.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The majority of the people in our parish are senior citizens, so we felt that that was something that they would like to do, and we have a whole plan we'd like to share when it's our, when we can add some more information.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next question for the panel. What held you back from taking your first step?
I don't know that anything held us
Absolutely
back,
nothing.
but we did reach out to Project Resource to ask if we were on the right track.
Yeah,
And that
me
was
too.
very helpful, because Shirley was one of the people that we spoke to, and,
Yes.
Father Bob, and that was helpful to bounce ideas off somebody else who had been a little further along to make sure, and then we just kind of enhanced what we planned on, and it was amazing how it took off.
It's just amazing because when you say what held us back, nothing did, because our team is absolutely dynamite. And when we met and we threw the idea out, they took off and they ran with it. And then we came up with a bunch of different things we'll get into, but a lot of ideas generated. It resonated with our parish family, and we're just very excited about it.
That's great.
There are a lot of community resources out there. You just have to have the people to do the
Right.
work, to find those experts
Right.
who really, if you just ask them, they'd be willing to give their time to you. So it just takes time. And Stephanie and you
Bill.
guys know that it takes time
Yeah.
to really put a great program like that together, but the resources are out there in the community.
You're absolutely right, because
Absolutely.
as soon as we started reaching out, they all thought that was a great idea.
Yep.
And a lot of them see it as an avenue to share in another way. And they're going to provide us with a little bit of information about whatever they want to share. And then we have 6 speakers. We have a doctor, a lawyer, our minister, of course. We have a funeral home,
Sure.
an insurance person, and a financial expert. And
Wow.
each one of them is going to get 10 minutes to speak
Yeah.
about what, just in general, about a little bit of everything. We're giving
Yeah.
each of them a table with materials so that after everybody listens to their 10-minute presentation, they can go specifically to what they want to go to, and they'll have materials to share. And we have 4 other speakers
vendors.
along the line of what you're talking about. In
Yeah.
our area, there's a program called Caregivers that provides help to people in need, and they're volunteers, a lot of them. And
Mhm.
we have the VNA, which is another group that helps
Nurses
out
Association.
and has visiting nurse association. They also have hospice information. They started a support group for people that need that for end of life, different decision making things.
Yep.
And we have it's called the Beacon of Life. It's located in the circle of Lakehurst, Manchester, near us, and they provide help for seniors who are more home-based and Medicaid. Then we reached out to a person, is a combination of information on Social Security, Medicare, disability, and if you're having trouble accessing that and what to do with it. And we had that gentleman speak separately a couple months ago, reached back out to him, and we will have him again probably in the fall, because it's a one-day workshop kind of a thing all by its lonesome. But everybody was so thrilled to help, and we'll provide lunch for the people, and just from 10 to 2 we figured, and a lot of people are excited. We've already publicized it within our church, but most, and the local newspapers, believe it or not, television, radio, and so on. And
That's
we have
wonderful.
more
Absolutely
people
wonderful.
outside of our church. So we do hope that, part of it is the planned giving and the legacy to our church, but everybody wanted the information. So we're just going, kind of one step at a time. And we figured that we have to push our own people a little more, because our ultimate goal is perhaps they will put us in their plans, and then down the road, we will start a legacy society and have a dinner every June to honor kind of what Eva explained, that the basics she has. And we are already we have an endowment fund. We already have the DIT is in one of our investments there. So, we have bits and pieces of what all of you have shared.
Yep.
Mhm.
Thank you. I
Oh,
like
you're
what
welcome.
you alluded to, some of the ways that you were informing your congregation and the community.
Yes.
So that's actually one of our questions for the panel, is how did you inform the congregation? So thank you for sharing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Vehicles. Lisa, can you let us know how you informed your congregation around the things you were sharing with us earlier?
Yeah, I think some of it was information on the church website, where
Yeah.
we have quite an expanded section on planned giving. And then the other way was through these live presentations that we did in person and on Zoom. We also used a survey, interestingly enough, because we were using it to inquire about interest, what topics people wanted to learn about, where they were with their current state of knowledge, meeting them where they are. But it also was indirectly a way for us to educate. So we did use a survey as another.
That's interesting. And you're right, it is indirect, but that's interesting to start creating connections.
Yeah.
Any other responses around how did you inform your congregation before we move to the next question?
Yeah. We also
Yeah,
shared in
sure.
our newsletter
Yes.
and within the parish, our bulletin
Yeah.
and
it's not all
publicity. We
locations.
created a flyer. Bill, I think, sent it to
did.
Project Resource. And that's like all over the church, and
It's all over the
people
place.
are really excited about that, so we tried every way. And then the committee, of course, they talk to everybody. So they
Sure.
represent a cross section of the church.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Next question. What was the turning point in engagement for your congregation? Any
Well,
thoughts around that?
Sure, Eva, for our church, for St. Stephen's Whiting, it was the turning point for us was getting every panelist to agree to serve on our legacy summit. That was it. But when everybody was in place, that was our turning point, and we basically are taking off and going from there. That was a big key for us.
I think just having members of the congregation outside of stewardship saying, I'm just so willing to help. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do
Mhm.
it. And that's such a great feeling. So that was a turning point for our committee.
Right. I think for us at Holy Spirit Lebanon, our turning point was realizing that we hadn't moved our endowment fund forward at all in 6 years. And only 2 of those were because of the pandemic. So our turning point was to revive a new committee of members to start leading and bringing it forward. So for us, that engagement was key. So anything else to share before I move to the next question?
I like what Bill said, that they created the material and then they gave the material to the people and people ran with them.
There you go. I love it. Yeah.
I love it. I think the biggest disease that we can all identify is fear. Fear. Episcopalians are very, I would say that the majority of our Episcopalians, they don't like to lose. They fear to lose. And we are kind of perfectionists. So things has to be just that way. Don't change anything. So when you bring something new, they have a critical mind of even criticizing it before they know how it goes on.
Absolutely.
And so because they fear to be laughed at, they fear to be criticized, they are not going to be part of that committee.
Mhm.
And
Thank
so, Bill, thank you for bringing the
Absolutely.
material and giving it to them, and they ran with it.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah, I think one of the turning points for me was actually having the support of my rector. I think there was some feeling of discomfort to talk about this. And so to get the support of the rector was really helpful to move forward.
Thank you, Lisa. The last question or questions for the panel tonight are, how did you make it fun, or how will you make it fun? And how did you celebrate? So
We made it fun by getting all of our team engaged. That was the way we did it. We just, when I threw the idea out, everybody just took off and ran with it, and basically just contributed some sort of idea or ideas toward getting this to work. And that was really what how we made it fun. It's a fun thing we're doing, and we're excited about it, and we're going to celebrate it just by the success that we have with the people from our parish and our surrounding communities that come out for this.
thank you. Lisa, how did you celebrate?
We haven't, I guess, gotten that far down our journey, so we didn't do a specific celebration, so to speak.
Okay.
We will need to think about that in the future as we go down. I think part of what's holding us back is that we've got a capital campaign going on, and we
Yeah.
wanted to conclude, finish that capital campaign before we start the Legacy Society.
Yes. Yes.
Could I ask Lisa how she did the survey? And was it an open-ended thing, or did you have suggestions that they rank ordered what they wanted to learn about?
Yeah, it was, I did it on SurveyMonkey, and you asked a bunch of questions where, like, I asked them, do you want to learn about planned giving? And people would say no. And then I'd say, do you want to learn about how to save on taxes? And they would say yes. And then I would say, are you, in the younger age group, or are you in the older age group? And because I wanted to learn what they were interested in. Do you want to learn about life income gifts? And some people were interested in that. So it was interesting how the answers revealed that they didn't necessarily know that much about the planned giving.
Well, it's 8:09, and so we have another 20 some minutes. Father Bob, would you like to help us with the next section? Maybe it's not a wrap up, it's really an open discussion where the attendees can chime in about the things that you're curious about, etc. But I'll turn it over to Father Bob. Thank you very much, panelists, for sharing your experiences, and
You're
it's
welcome.
very inspiring to
Welcome.
get some new ideas. And
Thank you.
thank you. Father Bob?
Thank you, Eva. Thank you to our panelists for opening this window into where they are and how they came to be there, where they hope to go. And thank you to Mother Megan for those practical fundamentals at the top of the evening. So now we turn to you. This is like the part of the baptism ceremony where they do the renunciations and vows, and then the priest turns to the whole congregation. Will all you who have witnessed this, where are you going to go from here? As you listen to this, I guess my question is, what do you hear in this? What do you hear not only in the content, but in your parish, in your heart, in your mind? So the first thing I'd like to ask is, do you have questions of clarifications or questions of things you want to bring up, build upon out of what you've heard here? What would be one thing you want to take a look at closer, either because you want to understand it better or dig in deeper? Mary Elise Hogg.
Yeah, I
What's on
have a
your mind?
question, and my room is dark. I apologize, but and I may have a unique situation, but maybe there's another church that has a situation. But in my church, some years ago, they formed a separate 501c3 for the historic preservation of the buildings. They call that Landmark Trust, and then obviously we have the church. And I'm wondering, when we go about this legacy society, would we want to think about it as a joint venture and give people the option? Because my understanding, been through ECF plan giving out a box at another church, my understanding is a lot of people that are leaving legacy gifts want to leave it for the buildings and the preservation of the buildings.
So let me take a quick stab at that.
Okay, sure.
Sometimes a church or a religious organization, which is not technically a 501c3 under the tax code, will form a separate 501c3 charitable organization in order to receive grants from non-church members, such as private foundations or corporate foundations, which won't ordinarily make a contribution to a church. So they will make a contribution to a separate tax-exempt organization. And in your case, you have a historic building. So, for example, that separate landmarks organization might accept a contribution from the New Jersey Historic Trust, which is a
And they
government-
did, and there was a whole thing about
Right,
that.
and that's complicated, but definitely that's why that was done. If you were seeking money from the state, because the state doesn't like to make grants to churches, it can't, because it has to keep church and state separate.
Right.
However, depending on what the terms of that landmark foundation are and what its bylaws say and how the money can be used, that may or may not be a good place for people to make contributions. There's nothing to prevent someone from making a bequest to the church with the proviso that this shall be used to enhance the sanctuary. That's permissible. So you need to look very carefully at the landmarks bylaws and how it's being operated. Is it filing its annual returns and so forth? Is it operating properly? Or you encourage people to make gifts that direction?
Yeah, no, I have opinions, right, Ducky, about that whole landmarks thing and how they did it. But nevertheless, I sit on both. I'm the senior warden, so I sit on the landmarks board currently. But I know at my last church, we ultimately changed the guidelines and went with our endowment because a number of people that wanted to leave gifts wanted to leave it for the building, and in that particular context, the endowment wasn't being used for the building. And so to get going with plan given, we had to, make those revisions. So
and that's very important. And of course, an endowment is typically a fund that the vestry has the authority to use in whatever means by whatever means the vestry thinks is most beneficial to the church. Keeping in mind, however, that if someone gives money for, Christian education, it must only be used for that purpose.
Right.
Or the building, then only for that purpose and not for general operating.
That was a very insightful response from Mother Megan. I'm going to offer something slightly less insightful. I have sort of a starting question about gifts to the church. I think every vestry should have a gift acceptance policy.
Yes.
Definitely.
And it should be right. And it should be read and redistributed at every annual vestry reorganization meeting. Because, you know, somebody can have all the money in the world that they want to give to the church, but if they'd like to do it, to put it in a stained glass window that you don't need, that shows their mother as Mary Magdalene over the altar, I don't understand how it helps the kingdom of God. And in fact, it can be an enormous distraction emotionally and practically from the kingdom of God and proclaiming Jesus as good news. So I apply that same standard to questions about should you give it to the landmark, building landmark things. Buildings are tools of ministry. I value them exactly as much and no more to whatever extent they support and promote ministry, the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's not the technical answer inside, but that's sort of a earlier question about why are you doing this? And I think it's a good screening question.
Yes,
No,
and-
thanks. And I agree on the gift acceptance policy. We had to turn down a gift of land, right, this past year and then have a gift acceptance policy. And so that's on my radar for this year as well, is to get a gift acceptance policy together.
And we had included that a gift acceptance policy in our endowment fund policies and guidelines, just so that we would have that ability. And that was through an experience that was challenging. So thank you.
Father Dave has his hand up.
Yep.
Yes, I'll identify myself as of the Project Resource Alumni Association. But I have a question and a comment, and the question is directed to Lisa. And Lisa, you mentioned, and I know this from my own experience, that you're in the midst of a capital campaign. And it sounds to me like you've used that opportunity to kind of open up the question of planned giving at Trinity Church in Moorestown. And I just wonder what your experience has been. Have you found that people...
Dave,
We briefly lost your audio, Dave, for that question.
We just lost you.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question? We missed the middle of the heart of your question.
Okay. So the question is directed at Lisa and the folks at Trinity Moorestown. And I just wondered if your efforts to begin a conversation about planned giving in the midst of or in the context of your capital campaign has been beneficial. If you feel like it's been a teachable moment, that people are more open to hearing about planned giving in the context of your efforts to raise capital funds. And if that's the case, has it been success? Have you identified any new planned giving prospects as a result of your efforts in the midst of the capital campaign? So that's my question.
Okay, I'll try and answer that. There are many parts that the capital campaign is a multi-year campaign, and it was very successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have actually a fairly well-to-do population, and they contributed very generously to this multi-year capital campaign. So we were really pleased with that. And we did celebrate that. All the large donors were invited to a lunch and given a tour of the property and stuff. That was very good. How that's linked in with this planned giving is we are trying to stagger it a little bit as far as we're informing people and educating people how to do planned gifts. And we're going to ramp up some education on bequests too, as well as life income gifts. But we're not going to start a legacy society until after the capital campaign concludes in a couple of years, because we don't want that to overlap. But I think the Episcopal Church has also advised it can take 2 years to really lay the groundwork, do the education, inform people, give them a chance to talk to their significant other, to talk to their lawyer, to talk to their families about how they want to do their will and what they want to do for a bequest. So the timing can be okay. And I think what's happened is maybe the giving of large gifts through for the capital campaign increased the number of like qualified charitable distributions that we normally would get. So in a way, those large one-time gifts that people gave for the capital campaign opened up avenues of gift giving other than just a credit card, you know, or cash. And I think that was good education for them. And then that way there's synergy because we're talking explicitly about like qualified charitable distributions as part of the planned giving. So I think, you know, there's some overlap and then there's also some differences. Yeah. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. And so the comment that I want to make is, and I haven't heard this yet tonight, is that regardless of where your congregation is in terms of planned giving, whether you have a legacy society, you don't have a legacy society, every congregation can ask regularly for people to consider making a bequest to benefit the ministry of the church. And that's something that every congregation can do. And in my experience, not very many are doing that on a regular basis. That's something that could be in the church bulletin on Sundays. It could be in the newsletter or on the website, whatever. One of the things I've learned about fundraising over the years is if you don't ask, people won't give. So we need to be asking, regardless of where we are in the journey of planned giving. We can begin by just putting a simple statement in the church newsletter. Have you ever considered? If you're interested, contact this person, and we can go from there. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Excellent comment. Thank you.
That's a very
And Dave mentioned you can put it in your bulletin. The other place you can put that question is on the bottom of your annual pledge form. I would like to remember the church in my will. I would like someone from the community to contact me about what it means to remember the church in my will. Takes up a little tiny space. If you're still using an index card for a pledge form, you can, even there, you can find room. I want to pick up on something that Lisa said, because it's come up in several things in the presentation from Mother Megan and in the panel discussion. And Lisa said that one of the things that you learned was that some of the research you did said it can take a couple of years for somebody, even after they first get the idea, to talk about it with their family. You know, let it stew for a while, talk about it with their lawyer, begin to make specific arrangements. It could be a couple of years. Other people talked about, well, we had this thing and we started it and then kind of laid it down for a few years and then picked it back up. The spiritual foundations of legacy giving and planned giving have everything in common with the spiritual foundations for annual giving, but the timeline is different. It is a much longer runway. It is a much longer flight. It is a much slower process all the way around, and that's okay. But beginning matters. Beginning really matters. There was the gospel passage this past Sunday was from John 4. That's Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. And I love that story. But there's this little thing in there that's not directly related to that, where Jesus said to the apostles, some people reap, some people sow. And the kingdom on good days is when the reapers and sowers celebrate together. Let's move towards that. Maybe some days you're a sower, some days you're a reaper, but the call is to get in the game and to know that it's a long-term thing. It's beyond our lifetime. It's beyond our control, but we are participating in the kingdom of God in God's pace. And what matters is starting for the glory of God, for the health of his church. And you can find yourself anywhere in that timeline, even when you're surprised how long it is or how stop and go it is. I see that Martha Hanier has her hand up. Martha, what's on your mind tonight?
Yes, thank you. I'm the warden of St. Mark's in Basking Ridge, and we are on year 2 of a capital campaign. And I just wanted to add that I tried my darndest to include absolutely everybody in the parish. Don't, go to just the heavy hitters, but include everyone and get them behind the project we are working on. And we have people running homes, we have people that are living in subsidized housing in town, so their Social Security checks are very important every month and they're getting lower and lower each year. So there was a woman that came up to me and she said, I can't do this. She said, if I get to the end of the year and I have money left over, I'd like to make a donation, but I can't pledge ahead of time. And I said, that's totally fine. I don't want you to pledge. I had a project on the side of making some things we could sell and said, you could help with that. You could help with your volunteering your time if you want. I had options to make sure nobody would feel bad about that. Another woman who's got every penny accounted for right now, she said she can't do it either. She goes, but I put you in my will. Yeah, you know that. And I went, oh yeah. And then I went, I had no idea. That's the kind of opportunity. If you have a capital campaign and somebody can't do that, they can think about what to do with their estate when they don't need the money anymore. And it's not that scary of a conversation if it's in conjunction with a capital campaign. Another thing is we tried at one point to have a professional come in and talk about elder care services that are available in our town, caregivers in your home and places you can go to live for assisted living. And we had this great thing all set up and we were presenting it to people and they didn't want to talk about it. Nobody expressed interest in hearing about their healthcare needs and what might happen next year. So I think it's a great idea to have all kinds of different topics in your Legacy Summit, and the idea of the Survey Monkey that you took, so people could pick and choose and steer away from the topics that are icky and they don't want to talk about. But I just wanted to share that, though, that you can kind of weave in your planned giving with your capital campaign.
Thank you, Martha. Somebody else had their hand up just a second ago. Natalie, is there something you'd like to say? You had your hand up a minute ago. No, you're good. I'll tell you.
I used the hand clap for the good news that Martha shared.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions. Sorry.
Thank you.
It's 8:27. There's two things that I want to reflect back to that I've heard tonight. Each of you has this nudge, these questions about finding your way into a ministry that includes planned giving. And we're here to walk with you in that. Wherever you're starting, wherever you're heading, if we can help you, if we can walk with you. And as you saw from our format tonight, where we can learn from you, Project Resource wants to do that. Project Resource began as a committee, but at this point, it is a community of stewardship. And the information and the support flows both ways. And that's really been at the heart of tonight's gathering. So we thank all of you for that. I want to turn it back over to Eva to wrap up.
Great. Thank you very much, Father Bob. So we will distribute the slides to you if you registered for tonight's session with the email that you registered with. We do have some resource links at the end of it. And we hope that you will join us again next week if you're able to. As I'd mentioned earlier, the instructive portion will be the same in the beginning that Mother Megan had given. So she will re-deliver that. And I found that each time I listen through that, something new comes up that I learn that I hadn't heard before. So I think that would be, it doesn't hurt to hear it twice or more, but we will have 3 other churches that are highlighting aspects of their planned giving journeys with the attendees. So I think that should be really interesting. And then the panel will be different. So we may cover some of the same questions, but the answers that are shared and the responses and the contributions of the attendees will be different. So we hope that you will join us again next week. And if you have anything that's dawned on you that you would like to have follow up, why don't you just either send Project Resource an email, or you could put it in the chat here and we will follow up with you. A member of our team will reach out to you as a follow-up so that we can continue the conversation. So I'd like to thank our panelists tonight. I'd like to thank all the presenters and all of you for attending. I learned a lot from the discussion, and we hope you did too.